Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident. Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Howard Berg. Howard Stephen Berg is recognized as the world's fastest reader thanks to the cutting-edge accelerated learning techniques he developed that turn information overload into information assets. Respected internationally for his contribution to the learning process, he is listed in the 1990 Guinness Book of World Records for reading more than 25,000 words a minute and writing more than 100 words a minute. Howard uses his talents to train you on how to stay on top of information your success depends upon. Howard is a graduate of SUNY Binghamton, where he majored in biology and then completed a 4-year psychology program in 1 year. He graduate studies at several New York City colleges focused on psychology of reading. Howard has created more than 14 other accelerated learning programs, including speed math and memory. Berg's Time Warner book, Super Reading Secrets, is in its 28th reprint, and Barron's Books requested him to write a text for students. Howard's Nightingale content program, Mega Speed Reading, grossed over $65 million and established him as a leader in brain-based learning. He is mentioned in a number of books as a leading expert on brain-based learning and has been honored by over 9 books that track outstanding professional performance, including Who's Who Amongst Emerging Leaders and 2,000 Notable American Men. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Howard. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and sharing with us some of your life journey.
Thank you for having me.
I look forward to our conversation. I found it quite interesting when I was prepping for the podcast yesterday. I put usually about an hour and a half into prep before I have a guest on, and you have led an amazing life. I look forward to finding out some details. I specifically have some things I want to ask you. Might be similar to what you've heard. It might not be, but let's dive into the show. So, Howard, one of the things that I focus on in my podcast is somebody's origin story. And I get questioned on, origin story. You just want to know what has happened in my life since I left college or left high school and become successful? No, because I believe that Howard, who Howard is today, is a culmination of your earliest recollections and memories up to where we are today. So I enjoy learning about people's childhood, about the things that happened that sparked them to be where they are, and everything's connected, at least I believe. So Howard, tell me your origin story and what key things from your childhood to adulthood that led you to where you're at currently.
I can make it funny. It started in a fallopian tube, but it was a long swim.
My goodness. Oh my gosh, that is absolutely hilarious. 58 episodes in of recording my podcast, and nobody's ever said that. You are unique. I love that. Love
Thank
that.
Thank you. But we'll pass on that part. I think most people like me to skip forward a few more years.
Hopefully, listeners, hopefully none of you laughed so hard you crashed into somebody. That was awesome.
I had a different childhood. I lived near a museum, a science museum. So I started going there when I was 6. There's different times. Back then you could go outside by yourself. You didn't have to be driven anywhere. And so by the time I was 7, I was helping with the planetarium. I was doing tours of the museum. I was showing people the different exhibits. So I was always comfortable speaking around people. I was a professional singer when I was 9. And I moved to the projects in Brooklyn, which was not a great place to be. There were a lot of gangs, very, very, very violent. It was West Side Story without the dancing and music. I met Bernardo. He had a knife. He wasn't singing and dancing. And that's for real. I had a knife to my throat. I was beaten with
Wow.
bats. We moved when they raped an 88-year-old man. So when I say it was a really tough neighborhood, that's a pretty tough neighborhood. Anyway,
Absolutely.
I found one safe place, the library. Apparently, gang kids would rather be dead than caught in the library. So I went there a lot. The worst thing in the library is the paper cut. And you can live with that. You know, it was better than getting hit in the head with a bat. So I
Yeah, of
stayed there a
course.
lot. And I had college reading when I was 11. And I went to the State University of New York, Binghamton, when I was 17 to major in biology. And my second half of my junior year, I got interested in how the brain works and learning. So I told the dean I want to major in bioenpsych. He said, you're a second term junior. You have 1 year left. You haven't had any psych courses. You have to do the whole program in 1 year and finish bio. You have to take 6 science courses, 2 4-hour labs. Lab reports took 16 hours on a slide rule. It was basically 40 hours of lab, 18 credits of science. And to make it fun, I had 3 jobs. I was working 18 hours a week. And he said, you know, you're not smart enough. And that's when it hit me. They never taught me how to learn in school. They tell you what to learn and why to learn. What will happen when you don't learn, but not why you read a book like The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You don't know any habits next day. But you hear a song on the radio once, you know it your whole life. There's got to be a way to learn things like you learn songs. And I got up to 80 pages in it. I did the psych program in a year. I took the GRE in biology. So I reviewed 48 books in 3 nights, like biochemistry, genetics, cell physiology. I got 3 questions wrong. So I was in the 99th percentile. I got an 800. And then it was like, gee, is it me or the system? It's the difference between you can do it or you can teach it. That's not the same thing. So I had a school, I taught kids 11 to 15 how to do it. They did a 30 chapter book in lifelong developmental psych, a sophomore college course in a week. And they took the AP test and 15 out of 18 passed it in 1 week. So now I
Wow.
knew it was more than just that I could do it, but I could teach it. And that's what I've been doing since, I'd say 35 years. I've been teaching people how to learn and use information faster.
That is amazing.
That's my story.
That
I
I
can tell you,
imagine
but
there.
my first marriage was a storybook marriage. Unfortunately, Stephen King wrote the book. But I have a good one now, so I know the difference. My wife is one of the nicest
Oh
people.
my gosh. I have never heard anybody reference their marriage to Stephen King.
Well, it's pretty accurate.
You know
I
what
might, I
though?
might be understating.
You're gonna live a very long life because you have great humor. I just love it. How we
Thank you.
started out your origin to where you're ending it with Stephen King. I got that. You're very unique, sir. I like that.
I helped launch the Comedy Network in the late 80s, early 90s. Dennis Leary was their first big star. And I was on his show 7 out of 14 shows. And I was Jon Stewart's first guest on Comedy Central. If you like, I could show you why biologists don't get to do comedy. A mushroom walks in a bar. The bartender said, "Get out. We don't serve your kind." The mushroom said, "Why not? I'm a fungi." And that's why we don't get to do comedy.
It don't matter. You know, even bad comedy, if you listen to it, if it does, it should make you smile, right?
Perfect.
Even comedians that are deadpan and can't get a laugh out of a specific routine, because I like comedy, I still get a smile. Usually, even if it's a smile because nobody laughed at it, and the comedian's like not seasoned, and they're waiting for that, like they're waiting for you to react in a good way, and they're standing there like they're not really. They should just flow into the next thing and pretend it didn't happen, and they're not good enough to do it. Some of those comedians are awesome and
Well, that's
awful.
when you're teaching, if you use humor, it makes it more effective. People, when they're happy, their endorphins are flowing and their brain wants to remember what made them feel good. And then when you're teaching them something they actually need to know and they're in a positive state, they'll remember it better. then if you had an instructor, it's like, when is this going to end? I feel like my head's going to explode. So learning really should be part entertainment so that people's brains light up and want more instead of can't get out of the room fast enough, which a lot of us experienced in many of our classes. Someone ring the bell before I kill myself. And we've been there. So I try to make sure when I teach, people will have that experience. It's like time flies and they're really having fun.
Well, that's great because it's so important that you've recognized that and you've propelled and take that message forward. I have a good friend of mine, Greg Kettner, who is a speaker, and Greg has opened up for the likes of Robin Williams when Robin was still alive, former Canadian. He's now lives in the US. And Greg has a site called on Facebook called the Humor Lab, like 12 or maybe 13,000 members now. And they post clean, PG kind of humor so that, young adults, kids can be on it too. And that's what he teaches. He teaches in the work how humor is so important in the workplace to help increase your employees, your employee retention, your employee productivity, and the list goes on. So I'm glad you brought that up. And I've had Greg on my show a long time ago when I first started over a year ago, and very well received because people don't realize that humor, like you said, positive endorphins, it makes you happy, it puts a spring in your step, and you can have the worst possible mood or moment in your day, and it doesn't take much humor. It can be a static cartoon that you read or the little cartoon bubble.
Absolutely.
It can be anything.
Anything that changes your state. It's one of the things I'm teaching in my program is EQ. If you're in the wrong state, even if you got good information, it won't work. I was training the U.S. Special Forces at Fort Bragg, the Royal Thai Army. I trained the Canadian Armed Forces in Toronto, and they're very well trained. But if they're in a bad state, they don't remember what they were told, then all that information is going to not serve very well when they're under fire. They have to actually remember what they were told to do, or they could get killed. So one of the important things in life is emotional intelligence. And a lot of businesses will give people good information, but they're in the wrong state of mind to use it correctly. So even though they were given the right thing, they don't use it right and it doesn't work. And then people are frustrated. So it isn't enough to tell people what they need to know, but how to stay in the right frame of mind to use it when they need to use it.
I love that. Thank you for bringing that up because I teach and talk about that all the time and about changing your state. And people will say, well, it's difficult. In today's day and age, it is not difficult to change your state because we have so much access due to technology to information. The problem is people associate with the wrong people. They associate with the wrong things to put into their brain with books, what they watch on television. They don't know how to separate between entertainment and reality. And they live on the hamster wheel of life. And what I talk about myself all the time is, and they get stuck on that hamster wheel. They just don't know the difference with reality. And they need people such as yourself and me to tell them there is possibility right now for you to change your state.
Would
right?
you like me to show you how to do it? I could show people how to create a state.
Sure.
So one of the things I taught the military is how to stay awake. When you're on a mission 3 or 4 days, you get really tired. So we know the left side of the brain controls the right and the right the left. So do this with me. Take your left hand, touch your right shoulder, and then your right hand touch your left. So using the left brain and the right brain. Perfect. Now, ideally, we should stand, but because we're on camera, it won't work.
Yeah.
We're probably both wearing sweatpants. It won't work very well. So we'll pretend we're standing, but those watching, it works better. Take your left hand, touch your right knee, and your right hand touch your left knee. And if you're standing, the knee moves. So you're using both sides of your brain. Then grab your thumb and go like this, like you mean it, and go, I feel great. Yes.
I feel great. Yes.
That's not convinced. If that's what you do, then you're gonna feel, I feel great. Yes, that's how you're gonna feel later. No, I feel great. Yes. We're gonna do 3 sets of these, starting with the shoulder taps. Are you ready? My speed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you're at home, do this with us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How do you feel? I feel great.
I
Yes.
feel great. Yes.
That's it. This time a little faster. Shoulder taps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Knee taps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How do you feel? I feel great.
I feel
Yes.
great. Yes. I
Fast
love
as you
it.
can. If you're standing, get away from the table so you don't bash your knees. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Knees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How do
I
you
feel
feel?
great.
Yes.
Yes.
You know what happens when you do this 3 times? Nothing. Now you probably would like something. So let me show you that one. Remember Pavlov? I'm the president of my Rotary Club, so I have a Rotary bell. Pavlov rang a bell, he fed a dog. He rang a bell, he fed a dog. He rang a bell, and the dog drooled. You don't want to drool, but you do want to feel great. You don't want to be in an important meeting and stand up and start doing the shoulder taps. They'll throw you out of the room. What you do is you grab your thumb and say to yourself, I feel great, yes. You do this every day for 90 days because the newest studies show brains learn habits after 90 days. And that's your conditioned stimulus, not the bell, but the thumb. So you're in an important meeting. I feel great, yes. You're taking a class after work and you're getting tired. You can wake up. Driving in traffic. I know a lot of cities in Canada, like Edmonton, have a lot of traffic. You can wake yourself up when you're finding yourself getting tired. And in the same way, you can learn other states. Like if I teach you to drive and you fail the road test, why did you fail? I got nervous. It was a test. What if I didn't just teach you how to drive, but how to stay calm taking the test? How many more successful students would I have and referrals? So in business, what are you doing to help people get in the state they need to do what you're telling them successfully? And what are you doing to help get rid of the state that can interfere? And most people say, well, I didn't even know I could do something about it, but you can. And it's important to learn these skills so that you can ensure that people get the benefits that you're promising them and that their emotional state doesn't stop them from getting it.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you going through that. Listeners, if you want to actually see what Howard and I were doing, check out the YouTube channel. You can actually watch us. We're not that far into the show, and I'm having an amazing time because we have a lot of commonalities. You're right, though. State is so important. I actually coach people. Those that have listened to my show lots have heard me talk about this. If you're a new listener, you can get to a point where you never have a bad day, ever. You have bad moments within your day, and you learn how to time yourself out. And yes, as a child, we hated being timed out. As an adult, I love it. Right? Time me out. So I have, because you know what, listeners, people watching, you're not productive when you're in a wrong state. You'll sit there and force yourself through something for hours, and your productivity is maybe, if you're lucky, 5-10%. Whereas if you just stop what you're doing, teach yourself a defined period of time where you're going to time yourself out, lay down, listen to a podcast, listen to a book, read a book, do something that's completely different than the state you were in. And, spend a little bit of time thinking about what it is how you were feeling, what was triggering that, accept it, right? Toss it, scratch it out of your mindset. If for you a timeout is 3 hours, at 3 hour and 1 minute, you're done. You program your brain to have a defined moment of time where you're allowed to feel that way, analyze it, change your state in that period of time. But at 3:01, you're 3 hours and 1 minute, your brain knows you're done. You've accepted it. You've dealt with it. Now go back to work, go back to whatever. I know people that take an hour time out, right? But a little bit of coaching, there's so many ways that we can have bad moments, never have bad days again. And so I appreciate you talking about changing.
Exercise also could do that.
Oh, big time.
Like a bike ride or a walk. It gets the endorphins flowing, which counteracts the negative state.
Yeah, a 20-minute walk is all really somebody needs.
Yeah.
And we're hitting into winter here, and I jump on a treadmill.
Right? Yeah. Here's a trick. So when you're done with the walk and you're feeling good, gently squeeze your left thumb and go, I feel relaxed because you feel good. And
That's
you're
awesome.
locking it in. You do that over and over and over again. Now you need to get that state triggered instantly. You don't have time to hit the gym or the treadmill, but you need to do it now because whatever reason you have a time factor today, and you can't take that hour or two that you really would like, which would help you, but you don't have that luxury. The times that happens, a schedule doesn't permit it. So you grab your thumb and you go, I feel relaxed, and you trigger the state because every time you did that, you were in that state, and
I
that's
love that.
about.
I love that. And it's, I talk to people about the fact of celebrating the little wins in your day. And that's what you're saying. So if you go on that 20-minute walk, half-hour walk, and you do what Howard's talking about, grab your left thumb and you're setting a trigger, and it's a habit that you have to create. But every time you grab your thumb, it's cementing in your brain that you're a success. You did what most people don't do. They say they're going to do something and they break the promise to themselves, and it affects your 6 inches between your ears. Where your brain doesn't know the difference between a lie and the truth. You have to program your brain to know the truth of what your
Yes.
truth is, and then do like Howard's talking about to cement that in your brain, and you will live differently. You will wake up differently, right? You'll go to sleep differently. And I'm not saying this is perfect. Howard will tell you the same thing. Nothing's perfect, but anything worked on is closer to perfection than sitting back and just having a woe is me attitude in life.
Yes, you're absolutely right. One other thing you can do to fight negative states, the worst thing you can do is fight it. So I'm going to control your mind right now and the mind of our listeners and viewers, and you know I'm going to do it, and you can't stop me. Don't think of Mickey Mouse eating pizza, and the first thing that pops in is Mickey Mouse eating pizza. So negative words are negated by the brain. It doesn't understand don't. It only hears think of Mickey Mouse eating pizza. So you can use that to your advantage. When you're depressed or anxious, depression is you're bummed out over what happened. Anxiety is I'm afraid what's going to happen. But they're related. One is the past, one is the future. But instead of trying to block a negative state, I'm not going to be depressed, makes you more depressed. I'm not going to be anxious, makes you more anxious because your brain hears be anxious. Focus on the state you want instead of the state you have. The states don't exist. They're only in our mind because we're thinking about them. When you stop thinking about them, you take away their life. So if you're thinking about how relaxed you are, no matter how tense you are, you're creating a different state. And over time, the other state goes away because you're not thinking about it. It doesn't exist without you giving it permission. And the state that you're creating takes over. In either case, you're doing it only in reverse. When you're negative and depressed or anxious, you're doing that, you're creating it. So you have a choice. You can create that state and be debilitated, or focus on the opposite state and move forward in a positive life. But you have that power, but you have to make a decision. And it's not magic. It doesn't go away in 5 seconds because you changed a thought, but it will ultimately, over time, dissipate the state that's holding you back, your fear, your anxiety, even your depression. You can eliminate all those states by simply focusing on the state you rather have. And eventually, the other state simply dissipates for lack of attention. And that's only the only reason it existed in the first place.
Well, yeah, and we watch our from young childhood, like back to our origin, we talked about, you know, it starts when we're younger. We see people around us learn behavior. Brain doesn't know the difference between the truth and a lie. We start adopting bad behaviors, watching our parents or mentors around us, school teachers, whatever, that get in a funk, and they're stuck in that funk for a day, sometimes days, plural. And, it's so important that people listen to, rewind and listen to what Howard was talking about. We live in depression past, anxiety is the future. Our industry, instead of helping people accept and understand and change their states, give you a little purple pill. They give you something that's going to help you out. And again, I know people that are clinically depressed that have to be medicated. There is people that it is an actual brain problem. But a majority, in my opinion, I'm not a doctor, based on my life and dealing with family and friends, my own kids, clients, a lot of people are misdiagnosed because nobody cares to build a relationship, listen to what it is that they're going through, and then give them some plausible, actionable steps like Howard's talking about, and I mentioned as well, to help you with your state. There's a lot more details to what we are talking about. So reach out to Howard or myself, and we can teach you some things that can help you level up. You don't have to live a life on a hamster wheel. You don't have to feel that you can't talk to anybody except you go to a doctor and say, oh, I'm feeling kind of down. Okay, press hard on the prescription pad here, go pop these pills and change your state like through chemicals. And again, I'm not saying that some people don't need that. I do know people that do. Majority of us, we just need some proper education to do some proper things like exercise, reading, who we associate with as people, to keep our endorphin level high. Here's a prime example, listeners. I like Howard. I see Howard on the screen, or I see a post of Howard's, and if I know him, my brain, the truth in my brain is that Howard's a cool guy and he's got some great information and he's a caring, compassionate individual. I see Howard. I don't even have to hear him speak. My endorphins change. Right? Who are you associating with? Who are you listening to? It's never too late to give a heck about your life. There is people out there. Anybody that's listening that's read my book and knows my origin from childhood up to where I am now knows that I've worked hard on it, and I will till the day I die. Howard's the same way, because we always want to be a better version of ourselves. Not that the version today isn't good, but we owe it to others and we owe it to ourselves, because you have to love yourself in order to grow and move forward. So it's important that you realize, right, that it takes work, and there's people out there such as us that are willing to help you. Don't think you're alone, and don't run to addictions like alcohol, drugs, sex, TV addiction, whatever it is, to hide, right?
Well, sex, maybe.
Well, okay.
You gotta
okay,
have an addiction.
Yeah. I get where you're coming, but we're talking about
celibacy doesn't cure anything either. So.
Yeah. Well, that's true, right? That's true. But anyway,
but I agree with you. I'm sorry. I just thought I'd
no. That's funny. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. So we're gonna move on from the origin. Thank you so much for sharing such great information. So, Howard, you developed cutting-edge accelerated learning techniques that allowed you to become the world's fastest reader. What exactly led you to realizing that people were suffering information overload and needing to learn how to pivot and make information assets instead of information burden?
I read about it.
Well, you're honest, right? But it's true, though. What do most people do? They're going to blow sunshine up your butt instead of just being honest. I can tell you the
numbers. They're actually more is printed each week than in all human history through the year 1800. And every 6 months, information doubles. The average person reads about 200 words a minute. That's the most. Well, if you crunch those numbers, you can see 200 words a minute. You're falling further behind every day in whatever it is you want to do. And I had an 84-year-old who took my program, read 3 books in 3 hours. She was 84. Now imagine every day you read a book in an hour, and not just a book, but a book that can make a difference in your life. Like how to read, how to market, how to communicate, how to build better. Every day a new skill, Photoshop, making a video. At the end of the year, you have 365 new skills that you can apply in your life. What would that do to your business? What would that do to your life? What would that do to your bottom line? Ultimately, you're going to make more money and be more productive. You did that for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Everything you do is based on one thing, what you know. Every decision you make is based on what you understand. No one gets up and says, I hope I know less today than I did yesterday. I hope I make less today than I made yesterday. I want an uglier mate. I want to have more pain today. Well, maybe some people like pain, but most people who don't like pain, which is the majority, don't get up saying, I hope I suffer more today than yesterday. It's all on what you do. And what you do weighs on what you know. And so I've read about 30,000 books. There's a few of them behind me, but Every decision I make is based on what I know. So even if I'm an idiot, I'm well informed. Most people today are suffering because they don't know what other solutions there are. They just haven't had the time. If you'd like, I could show them how to read faster and comprehend better so they can get started doing it.
Sure, go for it. Talk about it. Yeah.
So to read quicker, I'm going to say about 20-40%. I want you to pick a book you've read, preferably a nonfiction book. So the only thing that can confuse you is your speed, not the book, because you already understand it. Time yourself for a minute, use a smartphone or a watch, read for a minute and see how far you get reading normal. And then take a pencil, mark it off. And now you know that's how far I can read with what I do now. Now the magic. Go to the second chapter, take your hand, go across one line at a time, eyes following your hand. And this is important, as fast as you can comprehend. So as long as you know what you're reading, go quicker, quicker, and quicker till you don't. And that's when you know you went too fast because you already understand the book. So slow down just enough so the comprehension comes back. And for 5 minutes, go as fast as you could comprehend, not faster, not slower, using your hand to keep the eye moving. And go back to the first chapter where you tested yourself and timed yourself for another minute and use your hand and go as fast as you could comprehend. And you'll go 20 to 40% further with that one change. And then after I'll let you ask some questions. I'll show you how to improve comprehension, which I think is much more important than speed.
Wow, I love that. That is a quick little hack there for the listeners or people watching. Um, Obviously, the quicker we can develop and absorb information, as Howard mentioned, you can all of a sudden, it's 365 days of information that you've become better. Such a fabulous thing to talk about, and definitely we'll talk more about it. So can you share with the listeners some of the process of how you developed that accelerated learning technique, as
Sure.
well as introduce some of the process?
Well, I was going to talk about comprehension. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
And then I'll go back into what you're
yeah,
asking.
sure.
Well, most people don't realize that speed reading didn't work. The way it was traditionally taught was what I just did. They did hand motions, and you got faster. But when you went to read something you didn't know and slowed down, like a name or a vocabulary word, you lost your speed because you had to go fast all the time. And so most people were very disappointed and they didn't learn much. I was on MSNBC about 25 years ago when they first launched, and Dick Cavett was a very famous radio TV host, was one of their first hosts. And we got to be friends. We were talking after the show, and he said he interviewed Woody Allen. And Woody said he took Evelyn Woods, which was a big speed reading program, and said he read War and Peace in 5 minutes. It's an enormous book. And Dick said, "That's incredible, Woody. What do you remember?" And Woody said, "It's about the Russian Revolution, and that's all I remember." And that was speed reading. I think it's a biology book. It's a math book. If you didn't learn biology, you didn't learn math. So the guy who won Evelyn Woods paid me to teach his son my system and said, "You went past speed reading to speed learning." And I'm going to show you what are the key elements. I was more interested in how the brain learns than simply mechanics. And one of the key elements that determines meaning in text is called schema. So I'll demonstrate it by reading a passage with no schema, which will confuse you. Then I'll read it a second time with a one-word title that has schema, and instantly it'll make sense. Are you ready? This is the schemaless text. Even though the words are simple, you have no idea what I'm talking about. This is an easy thing to do. If possible, you could do it at home, but you could always go someplace else if it's necessary. Beware of overdoing it. This is a major mistake. It may cost you quite a bit of money. It's vague. You have no idea what I'm saying. I'll read it again with a title, one word, and instantly everything makes sense. Laundry. Laundry. This is an easy thing to do. If possible, you could do it at home, but you could always go someplace else if it's necessary. Beware of overdoing it. This is a major mistake and may cost you quite a bit of money. By teaching people where these clues are, and they're easy to find, you can go 2, 3, 4 times faster in very technical material, law, medicine, chemistry, and actually understand it better at the highest speed because you're not just using your eyes to look quickly at material, They're using what your brain is looking for to make meaning and significance out of that material. And then I teach them how to remember it. And then I teach them how to get in the right state to use it. So it's a bunch of skills. We use study skills to make sense of the things that are confusing. You read the calculus book, you memorized all the equations, and you failed. You have no idea how to use any of them. So you have all the information, but no idea how to apply it, which is a totally different kind of learning than simply regurgitating facts, which is what most people focus on. So they have the data, but they don't have the insight on how to make the data useful and meaningful in their life. I'm more interested in that. I think people really want to learn how to use information and not simply read faster and remember things they can't make any heads or tail out of.
That makes so much sense. Yeah, we are a society. We talked about that earlier about regurgitating and how there's very little new information, just different delivery. So yeah, that's so important to understand the fact that, they have data, but they have no insight.
Yeah.
Right. That is so true. There's so many different things that we can become better at, but we don't have people that are out educating and teaching us how to do it. So like you said, somebody reading really slow, or even if they learn how to read fast, as the example you gave of the person that read War and Peace, you really can't they remembered hardly anything. So just because you blew through it, blew through five in 5 minutes, if you didn't take away the information out of it, then who cares?
Waste of time. There's actually 3 levels of learning: literal, implied, and inferential. And I'll demonstrate that. Literal is what's on the page. It's the words. It's often what people memorize. They remember names and definitions. They don't know what any of it means, but they know it. So they can answer who discovered the New World? Christopher Columbus. What year? 1492. Doesn't mean anything. What was the significance? All the indigenous people died just about. Changed everything in Europe. They started taking over and making a lot of money and going to wars. It was a whole different world. So that's a much more significant insight than what year it happened and who was the person that did it. The second level is implied learning, and that's using what you know already. So if I said the man drank a glass of water, you don't go, stop. What's a man? What's drinking? What's a glass of water? If we had to explain everything, nothing could be read. The third level, and this is the deep level, is the meaning and significance. I'm going to actually show you 3 levels now with an example, and the third one will be very, very profound. So I want you to picture a circle with a dot in the middle. Just picture a giant circle with a point at the center. So what are you picturing? What's the picture?
What's the picture? The circle with a dot in the middle.
Yes. How interesting is that, realistically? Not very. That's how most learning is. Go read the book. Why do I have to read? Because I said so. How many times did you have that experience? So I said so. Read it. You had no reason to read it. You had no motivation to read it, no gain to read it. You just do it because I said so. And that's often at work as well. That's level 1 reading, literal. Second level is implied. The circle with the dot in the middle is actually a symbol. It's the symbol of the sun. It's the symbol of the sun in astronomy. And because astrology and astronomy have a common basis, back in the day, not today, but back hundreds of years ago, all astrologers were astronomers, and pretty much all astronomers were astrologers. It's also the symbol of the sun. Now I want to go to the third level. I want you to see this is one of the meanings of life. It's a circle with a dot in the middle. So how can it be a meaning of life? I'll show you how. A point is infinitesimally small. Wherever we look, there's an infinite number of points. They're invisible. You can't see a single one. So it symbolizes spirit. Everywhere you look, it's omnipresent and invisible. You can't see it anywhere. I had a funny thing I read the other day. It says, if God's able to do anything, ask him to say hello. That was pretty funny. Anyway,
Yeah.
the point is everywhere. You don't see it anywhere. Now think of the circle as a boundary. Everything in the circle is self. Everything out of the circle is what isn't self. So what does it say? Every self at the center is one thing. It's all spirit. Everyone's one thing. Humanity is a thing. It's not just a euphemism. We're all connected, and we're no better off than the weakest member of our family. Everyone is one. Brotherhood isn't just a euphemism. We're connected. So when we help others, we're helping everyone and ourselves at the same time. It's talking about how all things are connected. They look different. They seem different. In fact, magic is real. Real magic is real, not card tricks or mirrors. If you look around you, everything you see that isn't an animal, vegetable, or a mineral is a thought someone had that became real. The microphone, the headset, your glasses, the shirt you're wearing, the room you're sitting in, the chair you're on. Someone thought of it. And think about that. They turned a thought, something in their head that's invisible, and made it real. They created that thought. They manifested that thought in a world where we all can look and see and use it. That's magic. It's turning ideas into reality. How do you do that? By learning, by reading books, by talking to people, by taking classes, and then connecting the dots and finding a way to turn your idea, your inspiration into a reality. That's real magic. That's why they said man is in the image of God. We create things from our thoughts. Everything we do is from our thoughts. In fact, here's an interesting concept. We read about the Big Bang. It's this infinitesimal point that's everything, grows out to be the whole universe. Picture this point that it starts off as in your mind, this infinitesimal point, and expand it infinitely out like an explosion in every direction. And notice something amazing. The point and the infinite expansion both existed between your ears in the same space. If the universe is built from consciousness, it can grow out infinitely and still be in the same place. And if you think about what the Bible says, there's a consciousness that says, let there be light, let there be this. It's consciousness creating everything. In which case, it can grow as big as it has to and still be the same size, just as the little point in the infinite universe exists in your mind. And that might help explain, well, where does it go? How does it grow? Where does it grow into? If it's everything.
Like you said, though, your consciousness, so your understanding continues to grow. The space and expanse between our 6 inches between our ears is still the same.
Yeah.
We just grow our comprehension and our understanding and become more knowledgeable, and that's life, wisdom. But people sit back and complain and whine and bitch about life and, oh, boo hoo, this mistake, blah blah blah, because they've never trained themselves or had the opportunity to train their brain to comprehend the fact that you can continue to grow. You're never going to stop, but you always have the same 6 inches, right?
I'm 72. I'm 72. And I'm just doing stuff every day. I'm challenging myself. I'm writing, I'm lecturing, I'm recording, I'm making new programs. I swim half a mile 3 times a week. I lift weights every other day. Keep doing. You want to be a vegetable? Be a vegetable. That's a choice. But we're put on this earth, we're given an opportunity to learn and grow and become and evolve. And what do successful people do that other people don't? They use the time better. Why has Bill Gates got $1 billion and we don't? He used his time better. He was able to turn a thought, a dream into a reality. Elon Musk. You know something they have in common? They read. Elon Musk reads 2 books a day. Oprah, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Jack Ma read a book a day. Look at how their bank account looks and look at your bank account. Which bank account would you rather have? What are they doing you're not doing? They read a book every day or 2 books. They keep expanding their understanding. You could spend your day wasting time and complaining about where you are or learning how to fix it. I'll give you a trick. The single fastest way to change your life is to change the questions you're asking. If you say, why am I a loser? You'll find out. Your brain will give you a long list of many, many reasons why you're a loser. Won't help you very much, but you'll get the list. What if you said, how can I be more successful? Instead of asking, why don't I understand this? Or this is stupid. Why do I need to learn it? What if you said, how can I learn this faster and better? How can I apply this in my life? How can I use this to be more successful? The questions you ask will determine the information you get from your brain. If you ask loser questions, and too many people do, you get loser answers and you remain where you are. You ask successful questions, things change. And one of the secrets is get the information that'll move you in the direction. If you want to do something, there's probably someone who did it already. Get 10 books by 10 people who did what you want. You just got a business plan. You'll be number 11. It worked 10 out of 10 times. Why won't it work 11 out of 11 times? Or you could try inventing the wheel all by yourself and take forever and experiencing all the failures they did instead of the successes that they did. It's all about learning and understanding. The people you know and the books you read determine the outcome of your life.
Oh, wow. That is profound. The people you know and the things you read are
That's
going
where it comes
to
from.
are going to define you. And that is, it's simple, but it's profound because I believe in that myself, right? Associations, right? I love how people automatically say the word associations, you think of people. It's not just the people. It's what are you putting into between your 6 inches? What are you listening to? We already talked about that. What are you reading?
Yeah.
What are you doing? And so important, listeners, right? What questions are you asking yourself? Because your brain, again, doesn't know the difference between a truth and a lie. So the question you ask yourself and your brain responds to it is crucial and critical for your, and I'm not talking just financial success. I'm talking about your just life in general success, right?
Relationships,
Everything.
friendships, everything. It all depends on attitude and how you picture yourself and how you carry yourself and how you communicate. People, if everyone says, you talk too much, maybe you should listen. And the only thing they have in common is unless they all went in a room somewhere and you weren't there and had a meeting about how you talk too much, there's a possibility maybe you talk too much. And I'm not saying you should change everything about you, but if enough people are pointing out there's something you're doing that's annoying or irritating or keeping them from wanting to engage with you, maybe you should listen to that information and say, okay, how do I fix this? What can I do to make myself more acceptable to others? Have a better life, have more successful friends, and have a better relationship with my significant other. All those things can be changed by how you think and process information.
Well, people are so camped in their mindset and they get stuck. They forget how to climb. And what I mean by climbing is they've stagnated. They go to work, go home, get paid, whether they're a business owner, an employee, or a career-driven person. They go to work, go home, get paid, rinse and repeat, start to the next day. They live for the weekends. Their brain, which thrives on new information, isn't getting it. Our brain thrives on good questions, so it can be challenged, doesn't get it, and we become stagnant. And we have to honestly believe that if we can change one person, that one person will talk about it with somebody else. And that's where you started years ago. You're in your 70s. And as an addition, for those that are listening, he looks amazing at 72.
Thank you.
But
thank you.
Such
I
a
lift
pleasure.
weights. I lift weights. I swim. I bike.
Yeah.
I was a yogi when I got out of, I don't know if I mentioned that part.
No,
when
you didn't.
I got out of college, I was interested in consciousness. So I became a yogi. I studied all 7 schools of yoga with Yogi Bhajan. I've been meditating for 50 years. And I think that changes. I feel responsible to use what I've been given to help people. I mean, you could say, hey, he's the fastest reader in the world. That's not what I look at. It's like, I have a responsibility. The world's in trouble. Do you think there's too many
Oh,
smart people
absolutely.
making too many good decisions? That's our biggest challenge. I look at young people, we're giving them global warming, exploding debt, lots of wars and violence and
Oh,
stupidity.
yeah.
I feel it's my responsibility if I found a way to change it, to
What
get
what
this in
you and
this.
I what you and I are really looking for, though, Howard, is we're looking for, because you talked about smart people. The difference between somebody smart and somebody not so smart, stupid, whatever, is the fact the smart person was one of the willing. They were willing to step out. They were willing to feel the pain of rejection, of lack of learning capabilities, because they're trying to teach themselves how to learn better, as you know, some of the processes you talk about. It hurts for them to think that maybe the associations in their life are wrong and they have to change them, that it's going to hurt to not hang out with this person or stop watching the negative crap they're watching, start picking up and reading nonfiction instead of living in the fantasy world of
Yeah.
fiction. It's one word though: willing. Are you willing to step out and do what it takes to change? And if you are, there's people such as Howard and myself that will help you. But we only can work with the willing. All you need is a little spark in your brain that says, I'm done. I want to change. And I believe that you can then, because you become the willing. Now we just have to take you. Your road's going to have more hills and valleys than somebody else's, possibly, or more pain points. But we can get through it if you're willing to suffer, because sometimes it is a
Yeah.
suffering
Yeah.
thing, right?
Most successful people fail more than they succeed, but they never stop and they keep correcting. It's not failure, it's experimenting. You don't know
Exactly.
what works till you try. Till you try 10 things, 20 things, 30 things. And then the 31st thing is the one that works. And that's what you go with. You don't know. You try. You keep changing. You don't keep doing what doesn't work because it doesn't work. And you don't whine and complain because it didn't work. You look for something else that might work until you find what works. And you just keep going in the direction you chose, different ways. There's more than one way to go somewhere. There's many paths. But people do those. They give up. They get tired. They get frustrated. Other people are busy saying you're wasting your time. You're a dreamer. You don't know what you're doing. And they give up. You have to have the desire to be a success and want to improve yourself and realize that part of it is discovering what's not right. Part of it's
Removing
turning
it
on a
from your
light in a
life. Yeah.
dark box and see
Yeah.
some of the
Yeah.
cobwebs that are in there that need to be swept away. That's okay. At least you're aware they're there. And now you can fix them. You didn't even know they were there and needed fixing before. That's called unconscious incompetence. You don't even know you have a problem. So you're content to live with it because you figure that's the way it is. But no, it isn't the way it is. It's the way you've chosen for it to be by not looking beyond the problem. And most people could be in so much more success and have so much more happiness if they would just permit themselves to keep growing and break like a snake, break out of that skin and grow and become bigger and better and more than you were yesterday, not less. But it doesn't happen by wishful thinking. It comes from learning. It comes from associating with positive people who are going in that direction with you. And that's how people succeed. That's why a lot of entrepreneurs join entrepreneurial groups for encouragement and to learn what's working. Oh, I just did this and it doubled my income. Really? How did you do that? And you go when you try it. And now look at that. I doubled my income.
Well, you
Was it a
collapse
magic
time.
trick?
That association collapses time frames.
Yeah.
All associations in your life, from people to what you read or listen to, collapse time frames, right? It just
Absolutely.
does. You got to be willing to step out on it. Is you got to step out on faith, because again, what's maybe something that takes somebody months to ingest and get past because of their learned behaviors from childhood to adulthood, another person, it might be days, because they're at a different part in their journey in life.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is people they quit. I see people quit they try something for a few days, they quit. They aren't willing to, they go back to their comfort zone, and success is always outside the comfort zone.
Always.
And people's success sometimes I know people that are just about on the verge to have an eruption and change in their life. And it's just around the corner, but they can't see around the corner because their belief system isn't there, and they're seeing straight ahead, and all they see is valleys. They don't see any more hills. They just see the fact that they're going to get caught in the valley of despair, and they give up on themselves far too easy. So listeners, if you're one of those people that constantly tries new things and quits, you are worthy of not quitting. Give it another day. Keep on telling yourself, tomorrow is another day. What did I do today in this new skill that I wanted to learn that was successful? Extrapolate from that and say, tomorrow is another day. I'm not going to do that same thing that didn't succeed today. I'm going to use today as a stepping stone into tomorrow. And you keep on telling yourself that, you eventually will go from, your belief system will increase, right? Your actions need to be consistent. Your believability increases all through consistency. ABC, action, belief, consistency. One of my mentors teaches about that, speaks on the stage, and it's so underrated. Take action every day, listeners. Every day.
I have a way to do that. I'll give you a little trick there.
Sure.
When you're studying, set up a 3-column table in word processor. Now, most people in the first column, you write what everyone else is, what you're learning. Like you're teaching something, now I'm teaching something, and people take notes on what they're learning, but they're missing 2/3 of the information if they're doing that. In the middle column, there's 2 things you do. Put down your insights, any elaboration, related data or information that isn't being presented, but you're aware of, that takes it to the next level. Or what did the presenter or the writer do that captivated you? Was it a voice pattern? Was it a joke? Was it a picture, a chart, a movie? Whatever they did that made you go, wow, that's amazing. You just found something that makes people go, wow, that's amazing. So when you're speaking or when you're writing, you just found a meta program that captivates people and gets their attention and moves them in the direction you want. You can take that and use it. In the third column, and this is what you were talking about, very important. How will I use what I just learned in my own life? Let's imagine I'm at a Dan Kennedy seminar. I'm good friends with Dan. He teaches good marketing strategies. He just taught a very powerful marketing strategy. And I think in my head, if I use what he just taught, I can double my income. So in the third column, I write down specifically how I'm going to use that when I get home to double my income. Now, when I get home, instead of just reading what I learned, I'm going to look at what I said I would do with it. And I do it. I take action. I can't do all of them in one day if I'm in a 4-hour workshop, but I take a couple each day and I implement them. And I'll tell you, when you see your income double, you don't have to study it again, because your brain just saw an amazing success using a certain idea or strategy. That's not something you have to study. That's something you're going to use over and over again because it's proven itself to work. It's effective. And so every day, have action steps from what you're learning and do them. And the real learning isn't from the book and it isn't from the lecture. It's from the action of doing what you learned and experiencing the results and seeing those results in your life make you want to continue to use them. Well, that's how you really learn and master information.
100%. Look at all the different conferences that I know myself in my life. I've been to 150 to 200 different conferences and take pages and pages and pages of notes. We get home, we have that endorphin hit. The last day of the conference, we're kind of tired. Our brain's overloaded because today's conferences, most of them are done wrong. Nobody needs to sit in a chair from 9 to 5, 3 days, right? It's information overload. They don't know how to process it, which is bad enough. Then they take all those notes and they never ever go through and do what Howard was just talking about. Just take a couple of things. And I'm a work in project, Howard. I'm still working on that. I belong to a few masterminds. I'm going to a conference. I fly to the US next week. And that conference is the best type of conference. One day of learning, one day of hanging out with their speakers and the attendees, because there's only 40 of us, right? and then a free day where you can associate with whoever and do whatever. And those are the type of conferences I like going to. The maximum day and a half, I just came back from a conference, learned a lot, but it was 3 days, came back from Salt Lake. And by a day and a half in, my brain was just mush. Too much information. Even the notes I took, I look back at them and I'm going like, wow, the first day and a half, the notes are so clear so that I can take some actionable steps. By day 1.5 to the end of day 3, my brain was mush because my notes were discombobulated. They weren't necessarily connected because I had disconnected. There was too much speaker after doing this, do that. You know what I mean? And I get why people do it. It's a psychology of wearing people down so they can upsell you at the end of the program. Right?
Yeah, a lot of those conferences are just sell-fest. They're not really designed to teach. They're
Exactly.
I'll give a good example. Tony Robbins is brilliant. And here's what he'll do. He'll say, there's 10 things you need for a fantastic relationship. Here's the first, and he'll talk for an hour and a half on the first. He'll say, the other 9 will be in my conference next week on how to have a perfect relationship. And now you're like, wow, that was really good, but I gotta go back next week for the other 9. And then
there are 4 or 5 days of intensity where I love Tony. I was honored to, in my industry, I qualified for a day program with Tony. They brought him in. There was about 1,000 of us total. And it was intense. It was just a 1-day thing. And I enjoyed it. But oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine doing that for 4 or 5 days. Wearing people down, sleep deprivation, emotional highs, emotional lows can work, but not for everybody. Not everybody does Tony work for, in my opinion. Right? Again,
I'm not people are different.
I'm not critical of him, but I agree. There's so many speakers, and then you go to places where they speak in the back of the rooms, all full of tables. Come buy us our program. It's $5,000. Here we taught you step 1, as you mentioned as an example. If you want to learn the rest, sign up for this course. It's $5,000. Oh, you can't afford it? Put it on your credit card. We'll split it up over 4 months and blah blah blah. Sell your firstborn, and it's terrible. That information is become for many invaluable, even though it may be valuable what's in that program, because it's all about pitching. It's all about making money. It's not, hey, let's build relationships. Let's help people think differently. And if we do the right thing, we give the universe, we help God's children become better versions of themselves. Money's going to come to you anyway.
That's how you're going to
be. That's exactly. Me too. Exactly. Me too, brother. Me too.
So what I'm doing now is just sharing. And then hopefully at the end, people say, well, I liked it. What else do you got? I would like to continue the relationship. You sound interesting. It sounds like you know what you're talking about. I think you could really help me become a better person. What do I need to do to continue our relationship? And that's not doing Jedi mind tricks. It's just saying, look, this is how I teach. This is what I do. You like it? We can do more. Because at some point you got to get paid because we have to pay bills like everyone else. But I find if you just give a lot of value and not a lot of BS, just to give smoke screens, people can see when you're trying to help them, sincerely help them. All you want is their checkbook.
Well, yeah, people don't care what you know. I think people want to know that you care. People want, I can tell people all the time, people don't care what I know. They want to know I care first.
Thank you.
And then they want to know what I know.
That's right.
And life is about relationships. I think about all the hills and valleys of my life, Howard, and some of the valleys I was in. Associations, big time, was a key thing. But I was associating with people that were always wanting my credit card, write a check, right? Give. They give me little morsels, and then they want me to give. And then I'm stepping out on faith and don't get what I need because I haven't been taught how to take that information and do ABC, action, belief, consistency. I haven't been taught this shit in school, right? I haven't been worked with correctly. And many of you listeners that are listening or watching this, you feel the same way. If you're stuck at all, reach out to Howard, man. Like you mentioned about the fact, how do we stay in contact? Like, what are we going to do when I get value from Howard? You're stuck with me now, brother. I'm gonna
Well,
be
thank
reaching
you.
out to
I
you, and I'm
appreciate it.
gonna.
I
I
like
think,
what I do. Honestly, remember I said I was a yogi, and
yeah,
it's not just, it was never just money for me. I believe in karma and dharma. I feel reading 80, 90 pages a minute is a gift, but I also feel it's a responsibility to use the gift. Because if people who have these gifts don't use them, what kind of future will we have as a society when all these problems are confronting us? I can't fix all the problems, but I can make people smarter who can. So maybe there's a doctor who reads 50 more books than anybody read, and he finds the cure for cancer because he found pieces of the puzzle that nobody saw before. They didn't have time. Or someone who figures out how to make energy better, or somebody who figures out how to create world peace. It's not going to be me, but it will be someone that read my program and learned how to think and use information better and make better choices and decisions. So that's what I feel my job is to help other people be better at what they do, so we can all benefit from, as a family, from the collective advantage, and they get a better life doing it, and we all get the benefits of the better life because they did it. It's not going to come from wishful thinking and hoping and dreaming. It's going to take people with real minds and ideas and information to fix some of these problems. And I know every time I read a book, I realize there's something else I didn't know. I don't feel smarter. It makes me more aware of how much there really is. And one of the smart things is realizing you can't do it all. You need other people. The reason you and I are here today, someone's growing food so we have something to eat. And somebody made our clothes. And somebody's making our electricity. If they weren't out doing that for us, we'd be out having to do it ourselves. We'd be back on the farm trying to grow something to eat tomorrow. So don't look down on anybody. Everybody is doing something that contributes to what you do. You couldn't do it without them. There's no little people and there's no little jobs. Everything they do makes it possible for you to do. And be grateful for what you have and where you are, and be grateful to those people. So a lot of them made a lot of sacrifices. They're getting up at 4 in the morning to milk a cow. So you have milk on your table in the morning and you didn't have to milk a cow. I don't want to milk a cow, but I'm glad somebody did because I like having milk in my cereal. And I'm glad somebody made wheat so I have bread on my table. I don't want to grow wheat. I have other interests. But if they didn't grow it, I'd have to do it myself. So realize everyone matters. It's all connected. Don't think you're better than other people. Be grateful for what other people are doing so you're able to do what you do. That's the right way to go through life.
oh, gratitude's key. Absolutely. So, Howard, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
I think that the world's in trouble and we need people who care and are willing to change for the better. If we all make a point of every day becoming better than we were yesterday, learning a new skill, learning how to do something we couldn't do before, we all grow. We all become more successful. My website is berglearning.com, like my name, Berg. We have reading, writing, memory, and math. Reading will show you how to learn twice as fast so you can have better data. Writing, I wrote a book in 5 hours. It went #1 on Amazon the next day. We didn't have time to talk about that today, but you'll learn how to eliminate writer's block so you can create. Writing is output and reading is input. Memory is retention. And then math is the key to everything we do is numbers. As you said before we started the show, numbers are everything. If you need help, you have a staff that works with you. And if they can't help you, I personally do it. So I want to know what's going on so I can make sure people get what they paid for. I'm a Rotary president. I think if you promise to do something, you should actually give them what you promised and not charge them because they didn't get what they paid for. I mean, why wouldn't you want to give them what they paid for? So I want to know what's going on and make sure they learn it. And it matters to me. And I take pride in their accomplishments. Not that they don't get credit, but I know I contributed to it. It makes me feel I'm doing. I had an 18-year-old went to graduate school, got a master's in math at 19 with a 3.97. Another became an attorney at 19. Another one, 11-year-old C student, 22-year-old English professor. Another did 4-year university in 6 months. Became went out to proselytize and went to China and learned Chinese in 3 weeks. And then he was a missionary. He sold his company when he was 40 for $38 million, which is an amazing thing for a missionary to make $38 million.
Wow.
And that makes me feel good. It makes me feel, look what I helped them do. I mean, it makes me feel I'm doing something useful with my life. So I hope people will give me a chance to help them. Like you said, I can't go to them. They have to come to me, berglearning.com. And if you have a question or you need help, you can text me. You can email me at howard@berglearning.com. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. It'll help you do better in business. It'll help your kids finish school and get a good job. And when the jobs change, which they do now quickly, they'll be smart enough to change with it because they know how to learn. And it'll keep mom and pop from turning into vegetables when they're older. I'm 72. I don't think anyone thinks I'm senile. Your brain is as good as you use it. It's a muscle, like a muscle. You stop learning, it stops growing, you become mush. You keep feeding it new data and learn new skills every day, it stays young and vibrant. And that's a choice. You get to pick. You want to be a vegetable or do you want to stay alert and contributing as you get older? To me, retirement's silly. I have no desire to retire. I mean, there are days I want to do fun things and not work, but overall, I like what I do. I enjoy what I do, so I want to keep doing it. As long as I can, I'm going to keep doing it. And hopefully you'll become part of my learning family and we can do it together and that'll be fun.
Oh, I love the fact of, one last thing, listeners, and then I'm going to close out the show. Bottom line, we're a combination of our associations we talked about, and it's not what you know, it's who you know and what they know that counts. It gets overused, but it is so true. So podcasting has taught me more in the last year from fabulous guests like Howard, has taught me to think differently. I learn a ton of information. I know some of my listeners have reached out. They learn a ton of information. It's just this podcast is a stepping stone. So when you're done listening to this, reach out to Howard. There's information that he mentioned. I'll make sure it's in the show notes. You can get it, giveaheck.com, and take that next step, right? We believe in you, but you have to be one of the willing. And if you have that spark and you're willing, there's techniques and things that Howard can teach you. If you want a connection to Howard and you're nervous, because some people are, that's how raw they are in their lives. They've been taken advantage of or hurt. And if you trust me, listeners, get a hold of me and I will connect you to Howard, because you deserve to be the best version of yourself. But it takes work every day, right? Just as Howard mentioned about it, work every day to learn more. So I really appreciate that. Any last closing things, Howard?
I just want to appreciate everyone for listening, and I hope that I'll be given that opportunity to help them to have a better life. And I'd love to hear their success stories because it makes me feel very, very good about what I'm doing when I hear how it's affecting other people. That's the best part of the job.
Oh, and that's awesome. Listeners, Howard has got the biggest smile on his face from going from one ear to the other. What he just said was so genuine and true. I could feel that in my heart of hearts. So I just want to say thank you, Howard. I really appreciate your time. And so thanks so much for being on Give a Heck, Howard. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck. Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.